When is that show?
Friday, October 3rd. So first Friday of October.
Mean Girls Day?
Mean Girls Day, also new Taylor Swift Day, also new Thrice Day.
New Thrice Day.
It's gonna be a wild day. Welcome to Noise Floor, a podcast about music through the lens of our favorite artists' discographies. I'm Matt Kistler.
And I'm Troy Sennett.
And today we are continuing our series on The Armed with their 2003 album, Perfect Saviors. This came out August 25th, 2023 on Sargent House Records. And I would say represents yet another dramatic shift in their sound, while, still remaining pretty recognizably The Armed. All of the interviewing around this record kind of points to that being kind of the whole point, which is, not surprising given the kind of slew of albums that we've seen coming up to this being pretty constant in their reinvention and their desire to kind of push the envelope. But once again, this album has a host of people on it, produced by a great many people, notably not much production or mixing involvement actually at all from oh my god, why am I blanking?
Kurt Ballou,
thank you. I am the worst Converge fan on the planet. Minimal involvement from Kurt Ballou on this one, but we do have involvement from other members of Converge, namely Jacob Bannon is on this album somewhere, buried somewhere in the mix. There's definitely some Converge-like vocals that stick out on this record. But yeah, we have production on this record from Tony Wolski himself. Once again, we have production from Ben Chisholm and Troy Van Leeuwen, who has been in the band since Ultra Pop at this point. Does kind of say that his involvement is largely the rock and Rolodex, I believe is what he refers to it as.
They call him the guitar czar, which is also funny.
Yeah. They talk a couple times about how they would bring a guitar part to him and he would really just nail what they actually wanted it to sound like, which is cool. But we have additional production on this record too from Zach Weeks of God City and Justin Meadle Johnson also playing bass quite a bit on this album and really tearing it up, as we'll talk about later. But if you listened to our Paramore series, you've already heard us gush about him quite a bit. And we will continue to do so throughout this podcast, I imagine. But yeah, Troy, did you have any background with this album before listening to it for this series? I don't think you did, right? You had kind of only ever encountered Ultra Pop prior to the whole thing?
I didn't know this album existed.
Dang.
Because I had started kind of seeing some of the hype around, or the promo around the new album right before we decided to do this series, and I thought it was the next one after Ultra Pop. I didn't even realize they had put out a record in 2023, which shows that I just didn't really connect with Ultra Pop like we talked about last week. But I am very into this album. I think it's a pretty fascinating response to the Only Love and Ultra Pop eras and sort of the history of the band in general. I think that it is largely an album about projecting an image of yourself and posturing, especially online, and then digs into questions about is the self that you express online really your true self, or do you make it true by expressing it, and what is the combined effect of seeing everyone else's posturing online, and then it gets into how do people take advantage of that, and it's sort of in conversation with this sort of performance art aspect of the band. And then, in all of the interviews and the promo for this record, they're always talking about this is us being honest for the first time. We want to be a reliable narrator, they call themselves.
Right.
In one of these interviews, I can't remember which article that was. They get so much press coverage around this album, and the interviews are often very interesting. And there's this I don't know. Do you ever get the sense that you can't trust what they're saying still, even though they are this is ostensibly the honest era?
I don't think I really get that feeling. And I probably should because, we classically, if people show you who they are, then they're probably not lying to you about lying in a lot of cases. But like, I don't know, like it's interesting because like kind of specifically looking at Tony Wolski coming back into the band as Tony Wolski and not as Adam Vallely as he was referring to himself in the ultra pop era. Like, I didn't feel there was much disingenuous about the way that he was talking about things in like the ultra pop era. Like, yes, there was lying about his like legal name. There was people lying about like who Dan Green is, and like it is in this era where there is clarity around like, no, Dan Green is a real guy. His license plates or his license says Daniel Green on it. We do have another guy, Trevor, who we had seen before in early videos from The Armed, who is playing Dan Green as like kind of the public persona of Dan Green, who is the person who's, gotten profiled multiple times, and it just seems incredibly theatrical every single time. And frankly, in these interviews, whenever he turns up, it's the wildest shit you hear in that interview. Like where I think it was the Fader piece where he like walks into the Armed complex, like bleeding from the face, and Dan Ozzie goes, "What happened to you?" And he says, "I got attacked by a seagull," and walks off. And then you don't see him again at all.
Yeah. I like that they're even responding to like, so they're at one point they talk about how I'm gonna cite a bunch of things and not really remember which interview they're from.
That's okay.
But they talk about how the obfuscation and obscurity and the pseudonyms and all that stuff and the lore was all kind of like, what if we can hide ourselves and make people focus on the art instead of us personally, which I think is an interesting idea. And then on the album where they are saying like, we're not going to hide ourselves anymore. There's also the one where they seemingly get the biggest press coverage. And like, there's something sort of indicting about that, about the way that, music journalism especially is so rarely about the music and so often about the people who make it. And sometimes often that stuff is interesting. We talk about this stuff all the time on this podcast, obviously, but I think it's almost no accident that they combined this like shedding of the personas with their most sort of accessible, kind of pop centric album yet. And those things combined to make like a product that, the New York Times wants to talk about.
Right. Yeah. And it's especially funny because in that New York Times piece, we like actually get like a photo of the real Dan Green, the one who works at the Meijer in like Dearborn. Which is funny, just given kind of everything leading up to this. But yeah, no, I think that's a great point that like we do see those two things kind of colliding, and it feels kind of right in a way. And I think it was fortuitous of them to make that choice on this kind of press bout at very least.
Yeah. What do you think sonically of the way the turns on this album?
The more I listen to this album, so I reviewed, I'm going to say reviewed, and I don't know if I've talked about this much before on the podcast, but, I volunteer for a radio station here. And when I say I review an album for them, it's not like, making judgment calls on like whether or not it's good. It's mostly just like, here are some things about the album to help guide you to what songs you might want to play on your radio show. But like that meant that I like, heard it in the context of like really having to focus on it and focus on the lyrics. And it was one of those things where I don't feel like I latched onto it very immediately, but I still recognized that it was really special. And I think the only like turn I've taken in like more recent listening, like since, the kind of heat of all the like album release press and whatnot came off, is like, I feel like I've gained even more of an appreciation for what is here. And like, it's strange because like sonically in a lot of ways, this is the least Armed we've ever seen the Armed. And yet it is still so recognizably them, even when it's at its like most soft, I think soft is the best way to describe kind of the like biggest turns on this record. Like we'll get to the last couple of tracks here, like, but the turn that happens between Liar 2 and In Heaven is like even bigger than anything had happened before this. And like you mentioned, like this is inarguably their most accessible album, which is a wild thing to say about them. Like, because we're not even really talking necessarily. I mean, we are talking relatively because you have to, but like, I think this is objectively an album you could show to a random person on the street and they would probably find something cool about it in a way that you probably couldn't do the same thing with like Ultra Pop or Only Love or anything before that for that matter.
Well, yeah, it is like qualifiably rock music. Like you can, it has all of the hallmarks of like modern rock, or even though it is sometimes, kind of put into a blender.
Right.
I mean, this is the way I think of this. Like I've come to think of this album over the last week of listening to it, is that this is the album that Ultra Pop was sold to me as. So I talked a little bit about how like I was a little bit sort of confused by the way that Ultra Pop was marketed and talked about and reviewed in that it was this sort of pop leaning hardcore band goes accessible sort of album, and like I did not hear that in the album, and I still kind of don't. I still think that album is very challenging, and like we talked about plenty last week, but this album feels so again, like accessible is such a weird thing because there's very dense, tense, like strange soundscapes. There's stuff that is weird, atonal, and like they talk about in some of these interviews, like they're still trying to be abstract and they're still trying to evoke like subversion and rage, but this is the closest they have come yet, and I think often on this album sort of achieve this if not radio friendliness, at least like recognizably pop sound on this album.
Yeah, I think they talk a lot in these interviews about kind of specifically the progression from Only Love to Ultra Pop to this as being like Only Love is a record where we are slamming hardcore into pop structures, writing things in major keys, doing ABC, AB type songs. And then Ultra Pop is kind of trying to tug more from the pop end and less from the hardcore end. But I think to your point, yeah, it doesn't quite reach the point where it is recognizably pop music. But but then like the way that they talk about the turn from Ultra Pop to this is it's kind of an inversion of the aesthetic of Ultra Pop, where like the pop really shines through on this, but the hardcore influence is still really undeniable.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because you can hear it in almost every song. These really like crunchy, distorted guitars and the synths that like are sometimes are really kind of abrasive at times. It's they have all the soundscape stuff that they're usually doing. I think we should note this is when Patrick Shiroshi joins the band. Is that right? Yeah,
Patrick Shiroshi does join the band like officially at this point. He's been featured on songs before, but like is not really a full-time member of the band until now.
Okay, and I imagine a lot of that synthesizer stuff is coming from him.
I believe so. I think he's doing quite a bit of that, and he's definitely doing a lot of it live, if nothing else.
Yeah. I was a little bit fascinated by the AI generated album cover discussion that comes up a bit around this. I did not realize that this was like that album cover was made with AI tools. It does not come across to me as like obviously AI, because I think it's quite clear that this band has the artistic sense and vision to use it as a tool to make something that looks interesting. But what did you make of that? Or did you even had you known about that before?
I had not known about that before, and like the more I look at it, the more ashamed I am of that fact, because like I just keep seeing things that are like, I have always found this album cover deeply unsettling.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the point where I would maybe argue that I don't like it. And like I think now I kind of understand why. Yeah, I did, and like having not known that kind of going into this, imagine my surprise when I found Tony Wolski defending AI art, like on main, out in the world. But I am pretty like staunchly anti-AI art, especially now. And like, I think in 2022, 2023, like we didn't quite understand the, well, I don't think we were quite at the point where like we had these massive AI data centers like swallowing hundreds of thousands of gallons of water a day. Like this was still like in a weird way in its infancy in the public eye. And like Tony talks a lot about this, like, oh yeah, like this has been a thing for ages. These tools exist in your like Photoshop, your Lightroom, your whatever. And like the kind of like the defense of like all art is kind of stealing is like a little iffy to me. Like I feel like I hear that a lot.
I don't think he's defending it on that level, on like a philosophical level in that way. I think he's like an anarchist when it comes to intellectual property rights. Which
yes,
is
definitely.
Which is kind of an interesting angle on that, to say that like it basically just does away with one of the major premises of the arguments against it. Is it like, if you just fundamentally don't believe that intellectual property should be like defensible, then you know that completely removes one of the moral arguments against using AI tools like this for art. And I mean, and like I said, this is not like a Mr. AI, draw me a perfect savior in like Studio Ghibli. Like this is there is a clear direction and design to this, and that's why it's hard for me. It's one of those cases where it's hard for me to just like vehemently argue against this stuff, because I don't know what model he used, what data it was trained on, whatever. Like there's so it's hard to even make a judgment call based on that. To me, this is it most likely is sort of the ideal version of this is someone who is obviously has an artistic vision, using it as a tool to create something that is in line with the vision that they have. I don't, without knowing more of the details, like I don't have that much of like an issue with this. And I think hearing him talk about it, obviously, like you understand why he did it. And also, I mean, he even straight up is like, we also are trying to rally you up a little bit. And so, if you come out like swinging against it, then you're sort of playing to exactly what they want you to do.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's definitely the point here a lot. And like a lot of my being like, kind of iffy about it does come from like I feel like I have to have this strong stance, and I do in my 2025 world where like I work at a job that is encouraging me to use AI in my everyday life, and I hate that. And like I am seeing all of these studies coming out about the ways in which AI is like kind of really screwing us over already. Like on just a like your brain development type level,
and an environmental level, and all
really,
that.
Yeah. I weirdly feel like that should go without saying, but I guess it doesn't really go without saying for a lot of people. But yeah, like to your point, like yeah, it does really. It feels like that's really what they're trying to invoke here. Like we are the image that they wanted for this record was a like mangled amalgamation of every superhero like that you could think of. Like they wanted the very thing that AI can deliver, which is this like nightmare synthesis of everything that has come before it. I think let me see if I can pull the specific quote here. Yeah, okay. So this is from the Huck interview, I believe. So with Perfect Saviors, we wanted this concept of this algorithmic delivery system of a one-to-one cultural pastiche that is you. We wanted to apply that to visualization, and what better tool to do it with than AI? It's an amoral, bordering on unethical robot machine that created these superhero rockstar pastiche mashups. So like, yeah, exactly what they ended up with.
They've never like used these as like as the costumes for their live show or anything, have they?
Not that I'm aware of. No, they definitely weren't by the time. Like, I mean, we watched did you end up watching the Metro set?
Oh no, I didn't. I forgot about that.
Okay, well they're dressed normal. Like nobody's even wearing Juggalo makeup this time around. Unlike in the Ultra Pop era, which I did find very fun. But yeah, they did not, as far as I know.
That's because that's the My Chemical Romance angle, is to then take these and then make it your stage clothes for 4 years.
Exactly, yeah.
But regardless, I think it's interesting and worth kind of worth engaging with and talking about a little bit, because it has continued obviously to be a very hot button issue in art.
Yeah, and I mean it shows how fast this has like escalated as a cultural thing. Which, because this came out actually almost exactly 2 years ago as we are talking about it, because it's the 26th as we're recording this. So everything about AI art and AI in general has changed in the last couple of years in many and varied terrible ways.
I guess I should add that's also why I didn't ever had not realized this album existed, was because I had a 2-month-old baby at the time.
That's probably not helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Should we talk about the songs? Do you have anything else kind of before we dive in?
No, I'm just gonna praise the saxophone and bass playing on this record a whole lot. So just prepare for that.
Yeah. I guess the one thing we kind of didn't talk about is every Armed album has kind of had a guest drummer, and it seems like this album was recorded kind of over a lot of time and a lot of places.
Yeah.
Unlike maybe some of their other albums. And so they, both Yuri and Hackney, who played on Ultra Pop, and Mark Giuliani, who is from, what band is he in?
I mean, he drummed, or he played on Black Star. It says as sideman, which I assume just means he played drums and wasn't fronting the band.
With Bowie.
I mean, a couple of Bowie things, but Black Star is probably the big touch point for folks, including me.
Okay, neat. That's awesome.
Yeah. Which makes
that
aligns with the Armed.
Enlist someone who had played with Bowie. Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, but yeah, and so yeah, it's in there. So there's less of a singular identity to the drumming on this album, I think, as there is on some of the other ones. But you kind of forget about it as you're partway through the record, like just because there's so much else going on to dig into.
Yeah, fair.
So the album starts with Sport of Measure, which opens with synthesizers and easily the clearest sung vocals they've ever had. They describe this song as confrontational in a different way than Ultra Pop was, because this really just feels like a completely the left turn is so clear right from the start. What do you think of this as an opening track?
I think it's great, and I feel like I mean, obviously we talked a lot about Ultra Pop last week, and Ultra Pop, the song, was kind of posited as this introduction to this new sound. And this feels like it's very much in that same spirit, but maybe even more in line with kind of what you hear after. It's a big, bold statement from this band that has, had this very recognizable sound throughout their career that obviously has shifted quite a bit, but there's still this real core to it. And this is almost the intro to this song, at very least, is almost antithetical to kind of almost everything we've heard thus far, which I think is really cool. The opening, is just piano, glockenspiel, sax, wind, strings, stuff that we have heard some of sprinkled throughout songs prior to this, but it's front and center along with those really clean vocals right out the gate. And it's just really cool. And then of course it just bursts with electronics and drums and guitars and everything, not that long after that intro happens. And then we get some other wild stuff, and you suddenly know we're in an Armed album if you didn't already.
Yeah, and the sort of disconcerting synthesizer tones and stuff, they sneak in, and by the halfway point in the song, you know that you're in an Armed song again. Yeah,
they're playing a lot with They talk specifically on one of the songs about kind of playing with dissonance and microtonality, but I feel like there's a lot of they've already done a lot of texture stuff, but I feel like it's really prominent on this album in a way that maybe hasn't necessarily been prior to now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be. That's how you get the sound of the Armed without the aggression of only love.
Yeah, yeah.
Thematically, the song is, I think, very much about like, having dreams and ideas and big aspirations, but then not acting on them out of either fear or out of embarrassment or whatever reason people have to not like just kind of go for it. Or maybe out of, I think as we get to on the rest of the album, sort of seeing other people's like kind of perfect lives projected everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And like kind of the feeling you're left with when like living vicariously through others, that like you have maybe also done something that like one like doesn't actually do anything for you, and two like leaves you with this weird hollow feeling that accompanies this like kind of opposite feeling of like vicarious accomplishment.
Yeah, and the title "Sport of Measure" kind of plays into that, where they talk about sport of form being another song on this album. These two ideas of whereas like a sport of measure is something that has like an objective, it's time. You're going for a time or a certain number of points or whatever. Like and those things are sort of objectively measured, and they're all about a certain type of athleticism. Whereas a sport of form is more something like gymnastics or whatever that is judged by judged somewhat qualitatively as opposed to just quantitatively, and the judgment of what is best can kind of change over time, and is all about like is also notably about posing, I think, which I want to talk about a lot more on that song. But I think they talk about the theme of this record is that this was a quote from the Stereo Gum article, that people consider too many things as they would a sport of form, or sorry, a sport of measure versus a sport of form. And so I think this idea that like if you're aspirationally trying to be if these there's really no way to achieve whatever the dream of having the most money or whatever it is, when it's like what you should be striving for is sort of a satisfying artistic expression or whatever it is.
Yeah, like this desire for some objective end, when really what kind of matters is all objective in a weird way, or maybe not such a weird way.
Yeah. So it opens up all the thematic places this record goes.
For sure. One other pull from that Stereo Gum article is this is the second time that Tony has referred to something as sounding like Gundams fighting in space. I forget which song on Ultra Pop he was saying that was, but he says that about the end of this song too.
Yeah, Masanuga, whatever that Vapors, whatever that song is. I think that was the one.
I think that might have been it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's very fun.
Good image. Next up is FKA World. This is like a song that is, as I'm like listening to this for the first time, like even after Ultra Pop, this is just so not what I expected this band to do. This feels very like indie rock and shoegaze inspired.
Yeah.
Just I mean, they do that sound better than a lot of very popular shoegaze bands, I think.
Of course.
But this is one they talk about Justin Melville Johnson playing bass on, and I assume co-producing. And I mean, he really shines on this song. The bass is wicked on it.
The bass really is wicked on it. I also really like the kind of main guitar riff. Like maybe not necessarily on its own, but the way it like sits in the mix, like with the piano and everything else around it, like in that kind of like shoegazy mix of things, is just like super cool. Because like it's a very rock and roll riff, but it's like the context that it's sitting in makes it like stand out a lot more than it otherwise would.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a lot of that on this album of like, and I assume this is a Troy Van Leeuwen thing, where it's just like these guitars just sound like no guitar you've ever heard before.
Right? Yeah, yeah. He's the guitar guru, as it were.
Yeah. I think this lyrically, this is sort of playing again with the idea that of dreaming, of striving for the impossible, and this refrain that goes through the song of "I want to sell you lies" is this idea that like influencers or hucksters or self-help gurus or whatever are always going to try to give you this easy way, and it's never actually easier.
Yeah, and this is like this idea of kind of the lies that we are told by others, the lies that we tell ourselves, is like explored quite a bit on this album too. But like, yeah, this angle seems to specifically be kind of that, like the kind of glossy magazine that we are presented with every single day on our phones or computers or whatever.
Yeah. Next up is Clone. This is Tony Wolski talks about, specifically says this is a song about the idea of being really proud of yourself when maybe you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Which I think is, largely comes down to this idea of the chorus, which actually references a lot of other Armed lyrics, is like, you and I, we're all together, we're young and beautiful, a whole generation, we're all damned liars. This idea that we project these perfect lives online and we try to make that our truth, and other people see that as our truth, and therefore truth itself just gets kind of diminished and obliterated under the weight of all this posturing.
Yeah. It feels an awful lot like a kind of extension or like mirror to sportive measure lyrically.
Yeah. The album title comes from this song. What's the line? So never an admission, perfect saviors, and ugly new construction, which I again just took as like this idea of these quote unquote perfect lives that influencers or whatever will build up and show you are often they have no taste and no sort of artistic merit. Like, it's all about status.
Yeah. And like, no matter like what you've constructed for yourself through your algorithm, like in a weird way, you are getting this samey but like also individualized experience as like in relation to everybody else.
Yeah, and it says at the end of the song, all age so poorly.
Yep.
This also has this thing where they basically are doing like blast beats under a super catchy chorus.
I love when they do that. It's
awesome.
That's some very like ultra pop shit right there. Like I wrote down that this is like maybe one of the more ultra pop like adjacent songs on this record.
Yeah, and they talk about how I assume this is the case still through this album. They kind of wrote a lot of these songs concurrently with the last, like, really since Only Love through Ultra Pop and this one.
Yeah.
They were sort of writing songs that might have ended up on any given album just based on how they felt or where they felt they could evolve to on a specific record. So I agree. This one does feel very Ultra Pop, but it feels like it takes it to another level where, like, and this sounds like a dig, but I'm going to say it I mean it complimentarily, that it sounds like there are two different bands playing at the same time.
Yes.
And I don't quite know how they achieve it sounding as good as it does with that in mind.
No, they are masters of juxtaposition. Like, that's just kind of been a big thing for them this entire time. And I think that they have refined that through the course of their career.
The beautiful and the ugly at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good song. I really like it.
Yeah, same.
Next up is Modern Vanity. This was one of the singles. I don't think it wasn't the first single. Sport of Form was the first single.
Yeah.
But this starts with this like sub bass and kind of biting synth, and this one feels very fresh, I think, and they even talk about it as a like they were consciously trying to make something new and different by playing slower and using different textures. I don't know if it's Justin Melville Johnson or Kenny Szymanski, is that his name?
Szymanski, yeah.
Who plays bass on this song, but this is another one where I really noticed the bass. It just kind of sounds amazing.
Yeah, I wrote this song as groovy on like several of the songs, but like the ones where I did, it's always because the bass just stands out so much, and this is definitely no exception to that. Tony kind of talks in that Stereo Gum interview about how this was yet another like kind of old song that was like his wife had gifted him one of the St. Vincent guitars, and he was inspired to like kind of write this like kind of slinky St. Vincent type song, and it kind of ended up morphing into this, which I can definitely hear like kind of throughout the song, especially in the like for lack of a better way of putting it, slinkier, groovier parts.
Yeah. One of the funniest things in these interviews, I remember, I will not remember which one this was, but where he's like, I hate the sound of acoustic guitar, but also we had to figure out how to make acoustic guitar sound cool on this album.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love the idea of taking something you absolutely hate and turning it into something that you can at least bear.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting concept to me.
Yeah, there's an element of this. I mean, this is far from the first Armed song that rages against a certain kind of conservatism, but I think that's a big subject of this song, and this idea that this kind of what did they specifically say, like peace, love, no war, just kill the poor.
Yeah.
This idea that which I take as about hippies who aged into conservative boomers, but also this idea that cultural conservatism leads to these people in big clone houses saying if you take yours, I'll best take mine. This sort of breakdown of the collective community.
Yeah, and the kind of tag to that line, just kill the poor, is also definitely a callback to the Dead Kennedys, which I love when they do that kind of thing. But yeah, this is mildly to moderately unrelated, but since this was a single, it did have a video, and I love that the YouTube title for this video is "Was this the hottest house party ever?"
Yeah,
with a capital hottest and ever. And the video is effectively it looks like it is a VHS shot house party that Troy Van Leeuwen and the Armed happened to be at, which is great.
Yeah, as usual, it's phenomenally edited.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's a very awesome looking video.
Yeah, for sure.
After that is Everything's Glitter, another single. This video is just so is vaporwave, is that the right vibe for this music video?
It's somewhat, yeah. There's this it's mostly a live video, but it's got this really washed out lighting. There's some cool video synth stuff going on in the background on occasion, and then just some highly edited video stuff in the background as well. But yeah, it kind of does, kind of like with the last video, kind of takes the live video thing and just kind of doesn't quite turn it on its head, but makes it interesting. And they've achieved that thus far by doing cool lighting stuff and making things look really professional. But I feel they really kind of went for establishing a cool aesthetic on these that doesn't take away from the performance of the song or anything, but also just adds this extra element to it.
Yeah. And then guys, coming back around to the actual song, I cannot believe, as I'm listening to this for the first time especially, but even on repeat listens, how audacious they sound on this. To be a band that sounded, less than a decade ago, like they did, to the, again, sort of almost indie rock influence stuff on this. It's wild, and but again, they just accomplish it really well, I think.
Yeah. This song has that kind of a real melding of borderline indie sleaze and also some early post-punk and proto-punk, and also a lot of psych influence. This is the one where they specifically talked about kind of microtonal dissonance, as opposed to using things like minor seconds and tritones and stuff like that. But it kind of creates this kind of thick wall of sound that kind of cascades, which I think is a really cool way of describing it, and an accurate way of describing it.
Yeah, and it sort of ties into the lyrics, which they talk about being a song about this tension of, in order to achieve artistic genius, you have to look totally insane from the outside,
right? Yeah.
And pour your whole self into what you're building and what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, of course, I have love this bass line, and it is another Justin Mutal Johnson special. So
okay,
big shocker there.
Yeah. Again, he's great.
He's so great. They also talk about how wild the drum part on this one is, courtesy of Ryan Hackney.
Sneakily like the hardest one to play.
Yeah. Which it's one of those things where like, as a drummer, like I am not great at picking those out all the time. But the more I listen to this closely, the more I'm like, oh yeah, that's tough as hell. Oh my God. I'm gonna have to rewatch the live footage of that and pay close attention to the drums.
Yeah, I expect a playthrough video on our Instagram.
Oh God, no! Oh God, I cannot.
After that is Burned Mind. This is like the most Nine Inch Nails inspired song ever, maybe.
Yep. Yeah.
That like pulsing bass synth and the vocals just like echo around these twisted guitar leads. What do you think of this one?
I think this one's really rad. I do love that this is like kind of a shout out to Wolf Eyes in a way. Another band that is obviously deeply influenced by Nine Inch Nails in a lot of ways. But also like heavily influenced this song, especially via their like most commercially successful album, as commercially successful as you can be for a noise band. Have you ever seen Wolf Eyes live? They are
No, I had never
bonkers.
heard of Wolf Eyes before reading the interview where they talk about, or maybe it was the Dan Ozzie podcast interview where they mentioned this is song is named after a Wolf Eyes record.
Yeah, they're bonkers. I have not done a deep dive on their discography, and I actually don't know if I've heard Burned Mind. It was like a little before I would have been like diving into the Sub Pop back catalog. But I've heard smatterings of their stuff, and they are a fucking noise band straight up in a lot of ways. But I saw them open for a band that will remain nameless a while ago, and they were sick. They were like playing through these like DIY'd like electronic horn instruments. It was cool as hell. But anyway,
I know you said remain nameless, but I assume it was Daughters.
It was definitely Daughters.
Okay, I was like, who is canceled and also would have made sense to tour with them.
Yeah.
Okay, I had to know.
Yeah, I'm bummed that I didn't go to Wolf Eyes Burlington show that happened earlier this year, which seems insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also, again, a band like that has kind of a threshold of popularity that they can hit.
Yeah. This song feels lyrically like a sort of continuation of was it Dead Actress?
I have that exact same note written down here.
That I feel like it's further examining the idea of like how Hollywood chews up young women who will go there to try to follow these these West Coast dreams that then hollow them out, and as it's the song sort of implies. This song has a lot of sort of repeated choruses and stuff like that. But the imagery felt very connected to what they were getting at on Dead Actress. Maybe like a modernization of it.
Yeah, I definitely got that impression too.
After that is Sport of Form. This was the first single. Which is just an insane, like, to go from ultra pop to straight to this as a single is wild. But this is also the one of the songs that Julian Baker is featured on.
Yeah, this is the one where when they were sending out like promotional copies of this album to like radio stations and stuff, like this is the MP3 that said featuring Julian Baker next to it, even though most or like I think it's
she's
like 3 or 4
album,
songs, that she's featured on. But this is the one where they were like, no, this is the single. You need to tell people that Boy Genius's Julian Baker is on the song, even though it's really obvious, unlike a lot of their features prior to this.
Right. And I think this is the song that sort of most obviously explores this idea that I think is kind of the main theme of the album of posturing and posing. You talk about this, the idea of a sportive form is something where you are judged on the form you're able to create. And I think it builds up through this idea that like, there's a line, so perfect, so self-aware, a curation unflawed. And that it builds up through these images of sort of what it is to project a lie about yourself, or a heightened version of the truth. And then this outro is this long repeated, does anyone even know you? Does anyone even care? that is like if all you project is this false front, then like the real you gets completely obscured.
Yeah, it is a wild, like I like, this is maybe bar none my favorite song on the album, which feels weird to say about like first single off the album, but I think it kind of still is. And I think that outro, which is like half the song basically, is a large part of that. Did you get a chance to listen to the demo of this song?
No. Was it in that folder that
it was in that folder?
Under,
yeah. I might not have linked it on the show notes, so that's my bad. But for the listener, go ahead.
Oh, it must have been under a different. It says under the Ultra Pop demos, or where is it on here?
Oh, so it was in
there
the
it is.
newer.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, okay, never mind. Yeah, I just totally missed that. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way, like it is quite. It's like an old like Dan Green demo, like the actual Dan Green, to be clear. Like a pretty old song in general, but like it is. We kind of talked a while ago, I think specifically on the These Are Lights episode, about like some of the like MIDI demos that like transformed into these like huge arrangements. And this is like very much that. It is a MIDI piano and a voice. And it's really interesting to me, one, that this was originally called Jalapeno Popper Demo.mp3, which I found very funny from one of the interviews that was like deep in there. But two, like the song like lyrically has pretty much like been fully formed like the whole time from what I can tell on this demo. And like that repeated "Does anyone even know you? Does anyone even care?" has also always been part of the song. And the build is like kind of represented in the demo by like it going from this like kind of really like basic piano playing to being this like kind of increasingly chaotic like almost atonal arpeggiation going on, which I found like really cool that that's like always been in the DNA of this song. Like that wasn't like something that like got produced in, like that's always been the intention. And like it's obviously a million times more effective when you have like 20 different instruments crashing on the same note and you have Julian Baker on the track, but like it's I don't know, I feel like that's been a like really cool transformative thing to see. But yeah, like that outro like really makes the song, and like it was already a good song to begin with, so
yeah. And it's we'll get to the Everlasting Gaze EP, but part of the Everlasting Gaze EP is 3 different remixes of this, which all kind of use that build and that outro in different interesting ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Should we just talk about those remixes now? They're actually pretty good, I think.
Yeah, we
especially
can. And we should also talk about the video to this one, because it's way different from, well, not way different from all the other videos, but
yeah. Also, the video is like it's kind of a performance video at first, but it's got very bright colors and very cool camera work in typical like Armed fashion, and then it sort of goes into this really kind of like spasmodic red flashing light thing. And then the ending is Dan Green on a porch with Iggy Pop, who I guess is playing God. I didn't really get that from the video, but every article about this album talks about that.
I'm willing to accept that as a fact at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it feels appropriately Lynchian, I guess. I don't know what else to describe it.
I mean, yeah, we've got Iggy Pop playing God. We've got doppelgangers everywhere. Like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an effective, interesting video.
Yeah, for sure.
Then next up is Patient Mind. This is another one that's very electronic, but sort of in the similar to what you were saying about Sportive Form, where the sort of signature part of the song was there from the beginning. There's a demo of this song out there that I think was released through a hidden URL in the Only Love like deluxe edition.
Yeah, there was like a newspaper that came with it, and like that URL was somewhere in there.
Right. But you listen to this demo, and I don't know what I expected of this demo. What I did not expect was for the chorus to basically be there fully formed from the beginning, because this chorus just sounds like early 2000s emo. Like you could pop this into a Census Fail song and it would fit so perfectly. So I kind of love it.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. And I also love that about it. But yeah, like it does this cool thing where like it kind of bounces back and forth between being this like super danceable electronic song and then being like kind of a more fleshed out band arrangement. And it kind of just goes back and forth like that for pretty much the duration of the song.
Yeah. There's a thing the bass does at the end that is, it does this, the bass keeps doing this like continually ascending line under the main riff. I don't know how else to describe it without singing it, which I cannot and will not do. But just yet another specific musical moment that stuck out to me, that I loved.
Yeah, for sure. Again, bass playing on this album is very on point, regardless of who's doing it, honestly.
Right. After that is Vatican Under Construction, which has this sort of like filtered drum intro and bass thing that then explodes at the chorus. It's got this long, or not long, but like many times repeated main hook of this like fast lives, slow deaths. I just want to feel all right. What do you make of this song?
I like this song a lot. Apparently this was the last song that was like added to the record, which I guess kind of makes sense. Like it stands out in a lot of ways, but also feels like it fits in pretty well. We're kind of going between several different like moods here in a lot of ways, but like we do just keep kind of coming back to this fast life, slow deaths, I want to feel all right refrain. And like, and Tony kind of talks about how the song is basically like, yeah, sometimes you do in fact just want to feel all right, even though like we kind of all feel this kind of need to, ascribe too much meaning to things, as we go along in our lives, and are, maybe regularly having panic attacks sometimes while listening to an Armed album,
Yeah, to me, like, I think there's another angle to the song too, is I think that it's sort of about, I don't know if it's specifically online activism and how it rings hollow, or just the sort of constant consumerism of living online that just sort of hollows out every interaction you have. It just the idea of like trying to engage with, like I said, either activism or or shopping or whatever to make yourself feel better, and it never really works.
Yeah, the like a sugar rush is like doing a lot of lifting for that particular angle, which like I think is very accurate, honestly, because it really describes that feeling.
Yeah. Then after that is Liar 2. This gets into, like you mentioned before, I think this arc of 3 songs at the end of the album is fascinating, and I think it's where this album turns into something truly like weird and sort of perfect, in a way that no Armed album has been before. I think Julian Baker's on quite a bit on this one too.
Yes.
But this is like a full-on dance song.
Yeah.
And in the very like, we're gonna make the happiest music and then sing about the most depressing, awful, despair-ridden lyrics that we can over it.
Yeah, it is. I feel like in the interviews, it is often alluded to how much of a downer this entire fucking album is. Despite like it's more pop, even more pop aesthetic than anything we've seen before. But yeah, I love this song because I think one of my favorite things that the Armed does, that is like of a particular style, is when they're doing a dance punk song. Their take on a dance punk song, that is.
Yeah, and it's just, I guess the sort of like start at the end is like it ends with literally the last line of the song is "I don't give a fuck," which is,
yeah,
I feel like how the band feels about anyone who would be listening to this and being like, this isn't heavy enough, this isn't screamy enough. Like you get to just you have to just engage with what they are interested in doing at this point. And yeah, even if it is like talking about the most upsetting parts of modern life over the happiest music, it's that is their vision for this record.
Yeah, for sure. Also, like, just lending to the kind of bouncy feeling that the song has. Man, the sax on this song is just on point. It's so good. Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites on the record. And, I say all of this like bouncy stuff when we have a big line like the hardest paths still lead to graves, you and I. It's like they say the brightest stars shine through the darkest clouds, which is like this weird like roller coaster of a way to like talk about this kind of feeling of like, well, maybe it's all pointless, but also like maybe we're going to be the ones to make things better, but also
Yeah, well, I mean, they talk about it as like lies and delusion as your only means of survival when you're at your most desperate.
Yeah, like
which I
lies
guess,
are good sometimes, actually.
Yeah, which I guess is like the connective tissue to the original Liar from the Common Enemies EP.
Yeah, that was from Common Enemies, I think.
Yeah, because there's not like any musical DNA shared between these two songs, right? Like
No,
it's just
no.
the idea that both of these songs are. I mean, I guess they share the "Keep Talking, I Don't Give a Fuck" refrain that is, do they?
I don't know that they do. I remember Tony mentioning in one of the interviews that like part of the reason that they called this Liar 2 was just to troll people into thinking it was actually a sequel to Liar.
I mean, but they both engage with the idea of what it is to be lied to or whatever. Like,
yeah,
it's in there. It's in there lyrically. I guess I was wrong that motif repeats it all, but
it would make sense for it too. So I totally get that.
Yeah, which I mean, and we'll talk plenty on next week's episode about new songs that use titles without using any other element of those songs.
We sure will.
Yep. But yeah, so then after that they get to In Heaven, which this is the one where I was just like, this could not have existed on any in the Armed in the past. I mean, they did. There's that one like sort of Midwest emo sounding song on one of the early EPs, but there's nothing like a serene acoustic ballad like this on any other Armed record.
Oh my God, yeah, and like it's such a there's no way that this song could have come any other place in the album. I think, because like I feel like Liar 2 like kind of lulls you into this sense of like, okay, like we're in the groove. Like we're still doing the Armed stuff lyrically, and like we've got like tinges of it, but like the hard turn that this would have taken compared to literally any other song on this album except for Liar 2 or Public Grieving, but that has to be the closer for reasons we'll talk about. Like I don't know, like I love this song more and more every single time I listen to this record. Like it's one of those things where like I know it's an Armed song, but we talked about this a little bit with we were talking about This Is Why, where Thick Skull like really feels like it was a Julian Baker song to begin with in a lot of ways. This also kind of feels like it was made for Julian Baker to be on, in terms of arrangement, lyrical content, melody, and it's interesting because like this song was like written by Randall, like big tall dude in the band who is very intimidating, but apparently also has the voice of an angel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this song. It's the production's just on point. The lyrics are devastating. There's an incredible sax solo. Like, man, it's devastating and beautiful all around.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of the maybe not quite the culmination, but pretty close to it in terms of the thematic stuff. This idea that I love this phrase, the everlasting gaze. This idea that like you can set it up so that the eyes of the world are always on you, or your eyes are always upon other people's projections of themselves. But then you get this idea that like the last line of the song is, "My new body waits for me in heaven," which I feel like is almost this idea of like joining a cult, basically, or like thinking that this idea that you will, if you follow the sort of tenets of the what the culture tells you should do, that you will get the perfect body or the perfect house or whatever it is.
You will be rewarded in some way that is in line with what you have put forth, or what you think you've put forth.
It feels to me like kind of a sideways reference to the idea that people are always calling like the Armed a cult or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. that connection felt pretty strong there.
I would definitely say so.
Yeah. And then we get to the closing track, Public Grieving, which is yet again a song that sounds like nothing the Armed have done before. I was texting you while I was listening to the song, just losing my mind over like, it's a piano ballad. And then this is like the best bass playing, this bass solo, the flute, the drumming. It sounds like the Bad Plus and Radiohead.
Yep.
Like combining forces. What an incredible song.
It is a banger of a closer, and not in the way you would ever expect from this band at all. Yeah, like its place like as a not only the closer of the record, but as the song that comes after In Heaven. Like that transition isn't seamless, but it's like it sonically works so well. Because this starts off as a piano ballad, but then we get the grooviest song on the fucking album after that, which is saying a lot given what's come before it.
Oh, it's so good. There's this, I think the sort of closing stanza of it, this with a fear of it all and the vigor of all and a fear of it all, I can feel it. There's something like all encompassing about that felt to me like the dream that's talked about in Sportive Measure finally achieved. And it's this, kind of you're just overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what else to say specifically about this song. It's not just gushing about how incredible the playing is and how surprised I was that this is where the album ends.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like, lyrically it feels like a culmination of what we've kind of been, working on this entire record. So like it works from that standpoint. It brings something wholly unexpected, but also like has recognizably been hinted at through the course of the album. It's just an incredible song that's like really built well as a closer here.
Yeah, I'm sure that the next album is not just all jazz fusion, but like I would be so happy.
No, I'll talk a little bit about that after we talk about Everlasting Gaze, because it's interesting how there is one in one of the interviews. I think it's the Stereo Gun piece where they're doing kind of the track breakdown. Just like in the middle of talking about one of the songs, they start talking about like, Patrick being in the band and like the directions they can go. But he kind of alludes to something that I found really interesting, having not read that interview prior to like getting prepped for this podcast. But we should probably talk about Everlasting Gaze before we do that.
Yeah, so this was an EP that was has been out there since the album came out, just hidden. There's a bit in the liner notes that says of Perfect Saviors that says the glory of discovery outweighs the cost of destruction, which was a subtle hint to, I guess, rip open the vinyl sleeve to see there's like a URL or a password or whatever printed on the inside of the record sleeve. Is that what it is?
I believe that is what it is. Yeah.
Have you opened yours?
I have not. No.
Okay. But yeah, so people like this wasn't really found for a while. Is that the case?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is three new songs that were that are on this EP plus 3 remixes of Sort of Form. So it starts with Puzzler, which is like a pretty spacious synth track. With kind of another ethereal vocals, not too dissimilar from the opening track of the album, but it kind of stays in that mode more than Sportive Measure does.
Yeah, definitely.
Any specific thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I think the way that it builds by like really slowly adding elements, kind of starting off from that like plunky piano and like drum machine synth thing, like. The build is really, really subtle, but like, by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, oh my God, there's like 20 things going on here. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of cool stuff going on this song. I feel like I can see why it's not on the album, but like I'm glad it's out there.
Yeah, I agree. Like this, it doesn't feel like there's a spot where it could have fit without removing something else that I like better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then New Christianity is kind of the marquee song of this EP. I think it was there's a music video for it. There was a single. I realized that like I saw the first ever live performance of this song, which was pretty cool at Riot Fest.
Yeah, that's rad.
Obviously didn't know it at the time because I didn't know any of their music really at the time. But this one feels even more like recognizably an Armed song than most of what is on the album, which makes me wonder if that's why it's not on the album.
Yeah. I think it's got a lot of elements of like things that we've seen in Armed songs before. Like the one that I really picked out was the like kind of really serene vocals over these like intense parts that we often do, and they employ that a lot on the record proper. But yeah, this is like this feels very like I don't want to say more straightforward, but like more in the camp of what we've known the Armed to be so far than most of what's on Perfect Saviors.
Yeah, so I guess a better way to put it is if this had been the first single off of Perfect Saviors, there's no like, oh, what is the crazy thing they're doing? This feels like naturally where they would go, as opposed to taking an even further leap than anyone thought they would.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder, this might have been explicitly mentioned and I might have missed it, but Tony kept alluding to this song that they had that they were like, oh, this is going to be the first single of the new record. And then eventually it just wasn't. I kind of wonder if this was that song.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, then there's Martyr Song, which is the last of the three original songs on this EP. This one, basically just a shout out to how great the bass playing is.
Oh yeah.
And this sort of like post-punk by way of the Armed thing that they're doing here.
Oh yeah, it's wild. There are hand claps on this song also, which is like a thing that really hasn't happened on any other Armed song, which I found very odd to think about, but it's so pronounced.
Yeah. I don't know if I think a ton more about this song, but it's cool. I like that these are out there. I think they're good B-sides, even if I'm not like aching to have any of them on the album.
Yeah. Again, like it's a great B-sides collection because like all the songs are great, and I'm glad they're out there, but I don't mind that they weren't necessarily on the album at all. Like I wouldn't trade any of these for anything that's on Perfect Saviors.
Yeah. And then there's the 3 Sportiform remixes by Water From Your Eyes, Model Actress, and Idols. All of which I think I mentioned before, all of which I think are pretty cool. I like them more than I like most remixes.
Yeah.
Especially the Model Actress and Idols ones, I thought had a lot of really interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. For some reason, like I don't know if I can articulate why exactly this is, but in a weird way, I felt like the Water From Your Eyes and Model Actress remixes almost felt like they could have been born out of just the Armed as they are. Whereas I didn't feel the same way about the Idols remix. I still think it's good, but it's like it's maybe the most recognizably like, oh yeah, this is a remix of a song. And like not in the way that I would normally mean that. Just like, it feels more, I don't want to say chopped and screwed, but like in a lot of ways it feels like it's got a lot more like chopping up going on. Which is wild because like that's kind of the bread and butter of Water From Your Eyes as a band. But again, yeah, I think to your point, these remixes are all really cool. But yeah, I think the Model Actress one is maybe the biggest standout for me.
Yeah. All right. Any sort of final thoughts on this era of the Armed? Or we finish up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I do wonder. Like I wasn't paying too much attention to like kind of the public reception of this album or like the fan reception of this album, but like it felt like there was a lot of anticipatory talk about like, well, yeah, people are probably not going to like this one, but oh well. And like I feel like I almost could have been one of those people, but I'm kind of glad that I like had that kind of initial inkling that like this was something really special, like even if it wasn't necessarily like what made me fall in love with the band in the first place. Because over time I kind of realized, oh yeah, right, the fact that they do what they do, constantly changing things up, constantly like trying new things, is kind of exactly what I love about them. So like I think I have like, I feel like my appreciation of this album has deepened even more than like anything else we've talked about thus far. over
Yeah,
these last
and
couple of weeks.
And I think it's always just great for a band to evolve and morph and try something new, or take a flyer on some crazy idea or sound or whatever. Because they're a band's fairly consistently releasing music, and if one swing doesn't work, they're likely to try something totally different on the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
Which maybe they do. I have held off on listening to The Future Is Here and Everything Needs to Be Destroyed yet, so I could listen to it sort of in line with the rest of the albums. So I am very much looking forward to what they do with that record.
Yeah. I think you're going to enjoy it. I'm going to see if I can pull that quote that I was talking about earlier real quick here. Okay, yeah. So this is like in the middle of the discussion of Liar 2. They barely talk about that song in the actual like discussion in the Stereo Gum kind of track breakdown. But let's see. Yeah, Tony says, I don't know how super familiar you are with our output, but our first release, These Are Lights, was a record made by me and Kenny, my cousin. We started writing music and got a bunch of our friends to start playing it, and it was 100% an experiment by children. And I think that's what's going to happen next. Which I don't know if that feels 100% accurate to me, but I can definitely see bits of that based on the couple of times that I've listened to that record. I'm trying to, I was trying to keep myself a little more fresh on it for doing a bunch of re-listens for next week. But I will say, spoiler alert, I really love the new album.
Okay, I'm excited.
Yeah, I think you'll find quite a bit to enjoy on it.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a random recommendation for this week?
I do. And I'm probably going to shout out this actual album when it comes out, but I'm really hot on the single. So Claire Rousey, who I talked about on our Albums of the Year episode at the beginning of the year, has a new record out this year called A Little Death, and she just released the first single on the 19th called Just, which features another of my favorite artists in the like kind of experimental ambient scene, Matt Sage, former Chicagoan, now lives out in Colorado somewhere. He's a really great synthesist, clarinet player, piano player, like multi-hyphenate person, basically. But this record is kind of the conclusion of a trilogy of albums that Claire has been working on for a while. The one in the middle is A Softer Focus, which was the record that got me into her in the first place. So like kind of knowing that this is kind of in that camp really gets me excited for this record. And the single Just is really, really cool. Like some really awesome clarinet stuff, like some kind of classic like field recording type stuff going on. Just very much up my alley, ambient adjacent type stuff. But yeah,
very cool. I need to listen to that.
Dope. What do you got?
I am going to recommend let's do this. I'm going to recommend the album Blame It on the Weather by Kerosene Heights. This is a band that I don't actually know that much about. I don't even know where they're from. But I saw them recommended on Chorus, I'm sure, and also I think maybe on The Alternative. And this album sounds like a beautiful mashup of Hot Mulligan and You Blew It. Just like a little pop punk, a little emo. Really excellently produced album that in the what you expect from this genre. It's very sort of emotional, but never never too over the top, I think. And it's just kind of the right amount of all the sliders were in the right place for me on this one as far as my taste in emo and pop punk. So I think it's worth checking out.
That rules. I'm very excited to check this one out. The review of Hot Mulligan You Blew It mashup just like perked my ears up immediately.
Yeah, they really nailed it, and it doesn't sound too derivative either. Like they're clearly doing something cool.
Nice, that's awesome.
All right, that is it for this week then. We are back next week to finish up our Armed series, talking about The Future Is Here and everything needs to be destroyed. In the meantime, you can find us on the internet at noisefloorpodcast.com or noisefloorpod on Instagram, or send us hate mail at noisefloorpodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you next week.
See you next week. Please be nice to us.